Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into nature's extreme lifespan lottery. We're going to explore the wild extremes of animal lifespans, from creatures that literally live a single day, all the way to those that are older than modern history. You know, the natural world is just full of these bizarre contradictions. Some animals barely live long enough to see the next sunrise, while others were roaming the earth when your great-grandparents were just children. Let's figure out exactly how nature decides who gets a fleeting moment and who gets centuries.
Let's start right out at the absolute edges of the spectrum. On one hand, you got the adult mayfly, which lives less than 24 hours. And then contrast that against the Greenland shark, a creature that can roam the freezing oceans for 300 to 400 years. We've got one animal experiencing its entire adult life in a single day, matched up against a massive predator that lives through multiple human generations. I mean, it's a staggering gap.
So, what's the deal here? Why does nature allow such massive differences in how long a specific animal survives? Why can one species stick around for centuries while another is gone almost immediately after reaching adulthood? Well, to figure this out, we have to unravel a fascinating mix of evolution, biology, energy, danger, and one incredibly simple underlying question. How much does a specific animal actually benefit from staying alive longer? Right off the bat, we've got to address the elephant in the room and ask, does an animal's physical size directly dictate its lifespan? It's a super common misconception. A lot of people naturally assume that bigger animals just automatically live longer lives. And to be fair, if you look around the animal kingdom, that's often true. But it's absolutely not the whole story. Sure, a large elephant might live 60 to 70 years, and a tiny mouse might only survive 1 or 2 years. That seems to fit the rule perfectly, right? But then, nature throws a total wrench in the gears with something like a parrot. It's a small animal, but certain parrot species can easily live over 80 years. And as we'll see in a minute, giant tortoises routinely outlive almost every land animal on Earth. So, if physical size isn't the grand architect of lifespan, what actually is?
That brings us to Rule 1, evolutionary pressure and danger.
The first true rule of lifespan really comes down to the everyday, constant threat of being eaten. Scientists believe that lifespan is heavily, and I mean heavily, influenced by the sheer amount of danger an animal faces on a day-to-day basis. Imagine being a wild rabbit. Every single day, foxes, hawks, snakes, basically everything is actively trying to make you their lunch. Your chances of avoiding all of them for decades are practically zero, so your biological strategy has to adapt to that extreme, constant danger. The crucial point here is that when an animal is highly likely to be eaten by a fox or a hawk, biology prioritizes quick reproduction over long-term survival. Let's be real. Evolution doesn't reward a rabbit for building a durable body that can last a century. It would be a complete waste of energy. Instead, the rabbit evolves to grow incredibly quickly, reproduce as early as possible, and have tons of offspring. The evolutionary goal isn't longevity. It's just to have babies before something inevitably eats them. When death is knocking at the door early anyway, evolution just stops investing in keeping the body young. Mice, rats, small fish, insects, they all follow this exact same blueprint.
But now, flip the script. Once you're a giant tortoise covered in thick armor with almost zero natural predators, staying alive for decades becomes incredibly useful. You move slowly, sure, but nothing can really kill you once you're fully grown. Because you are so safe, suddenly, living a very long time pays off. The longer you survive inside that armored shell, the more opportunities you get to reproduce and pass on your genes. In this wonderfully safe situation, evolution favors bodies that age way, way more slowly.
Take a look at a famous tortoise named Jonathan. Some giant tortoises live well past 150 years. And Jonathan here was actually born in the early 1830s and is still alive today. Just let the sheer weight of that history sink in. When Jonathan hatched, most countries didn't even have electricity. He was wandering around before the very first photograph was taken in 1839. He was already an old man when the Wright brothers flew the first airplane in 1903, all because his ancestors invested in a heavy, predator-proof shell.
Now let's shift gears to Rule 2, the metabolism factor.
Our second major factor takes us internal, focusing on how the body uses its fuel. We've talked about the outside threats, but now we really need to look under the hood at the engine itself. Metabolism is essentially the speed of your engine, and how fast you burn energy heavily dictates the pace of your life. Every time an animal moves, digests food, or just keeps its heart beating, it's burning fuel. And the speed at which that happens plays a massive role in how long the organism can keep going.
500. That massive number is the heartbeats per minute of a frantic mouse. It's constantly moving, eating, and burning fuel at top speed. Animals with extremely fast metabolisms usually live much shorter lives. The mouse's heart is just racing, beating over 500 times a minute. It's locked in this frantic state of survival, and that high-speed engine simply burns out quickly.
Throughout nature, you see this pattern where animals with frantic, fast metabolisms generally die earlier than those with slow, unhurried lifestyles, like our giant tortoise. Compare that racing mouse's heart to the tortoise, whose metabolism is incredibly slow. Its heart beats far less frequently, digestion is slower, movements are slower. Now, it's not a perfectly absolute rule in every single case, but this live fast, die young versus live slow, last longer paradigm appears again and again across the natural world.
And the ultimate masters of living slow are the Greenland sharks. They use freezing cold water and an incredibly slow growth rate to live for 300 to 400 years. They swim through the icy waters of the Arctic Ocean, and that cold environment basically works with their biology to create a remarkably slow metabolism and a crawling rate of growth. They live so slowly, in fact, that scientists estimate some don't even reach adulthood until they are over 100 years old. They are literally the longest living vertebrates ever discovered on our planet. To really put that into perspective, there are likely Greenland sharks swimming in the Arctic today that were born before William Shakespeare even picked up a quill. Just sit with that for a second. Somewhere deep in the freezing ocean right now, there is a living, breathing creature that was swimming around while the Globe Theater was being built. That is the true power of a slow metabolism. Then, you bounce all the way back to our adult mayfly, whose life is so short and frantic that many species don't even have functioning mouths to eat. Their only job is to reproduce and die in a single day. They might spend months or years developing slowly underwater as larvae, but once they emerge as adults, the clock is frantically ticking. They can't even stop for a meal. Their biological engine is running at absolute maximum speed for one singular purpose: mating, and then the engine just shuts down entirely. Which brings us to our third and final factor. Rule 3. Cellular maintenance. Because lifespan isn't just about dodging predators or slowing down your engine. The actual mechanics of aging itself play a huge role. Think of a car that slowly accumulates rust and worn-out gears over time. Physical bodies break down in a similar way. Every single time your cells divide to keep you alive, there's a risk. Tiny, microscopic errors can accumulate. Over time, DNA gets damaged, vital proteins stop functioning perfectly, and physical tissues simply wear out. This steady accumulation of damage is exactly why bodies eventually begin to fail. But here's the wild part. Certain long-lived species are surprisingly good at repairing this cellular damage, making them unusually resistant to the aging process. Different animals have evolved very different ways of dealing with this microscopic wear and tear. A mouse? Terrible at it. But nature's master mechanics, creatures like giant tortoises, bowhead whales, and those ancient Greenland sharks have somehow evolved mechanisms to fix these cellular errors at an astonishing rate. They literally fight back against the breakdown of their own bodies. So, why does all this matter to us? That brings us to our final section, the human connection, unlocking secrets of aging. You might be sitting there wondering why scientists care so deeply about the lifespans of sharks and tortoises, and the answer brings us right back to human health. This isn't just fun trivia about old animals. This is on the absolute cutting edge of human medicine. Understanding exactly how these extreme survivors combat cellular damage could one day help us better understand and potentially even slow down our own aging. Scientists are intensely studying these creatures because they want to know how they do it. What specific biological tricks are these tortoises and whales using to keep their cells from accumulating damage? Because if we can decode the cellular repair mechanisms of a 400-year-old shark, we might discover entirely new ways to treat age-related diseases in humans. Which leaves us with this final thrilling thought. By looking closely at the wild rules of nature's lifespan lottery, might we eventually learn how to beat the clock ourselves? Could the secrets hidden in the freezing depths of the Arctic or under the heavy shell of a giant tortoise one day rewrite the rules of human aging entirely? It's a fascinating question, and it makes studying these incredible animals more important than ever. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope it sparked your curiosity as much as it did mine.